Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Welcome to tonight's Keeping It Geekly indie comic interview with our good friend Mark Charles Burgat of Stonemason Comics. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing tonight, Mark? How's everything going? I really appreciate you stopping on. And for once, we are doing this show live, so a big shout out to that and your patience with me setting it up.
Well, let me thank you for having me on, and I've been doing very well.
So we're going to be talking about Mark's current subscribe star, Ninu of the Dinosaurs, Chapter 1. But first, let's go ahead and break down the prologue a little bit. This is the adventures and the misadventures of a prehistoric raccoon girl that befriends a Bronchiosaurus, excuse me, and things get a little chaotic. So what went into creating Ninu? And let's break down the dinosaurs too, because I'm a huge fanatic of dinosaurs. So what propelled you to want to base this in the prehistoric times?
Well, it's like, a few years ago, I was trying to come up with ideas for comics, and I just did a series of comic strips that, a bunch of firsts. Didn't really go anywhere with them at first, but Ninu was one of the ideas that I came up with. I just, the fact that she's a raccoon girl, I think I either saw Guardians of the Galaxy or Guardians of the Galaxy was coming out, and Rocket Raccoon was all over the media at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seemed like something that would be fun to draw, and whereas Guardians of the Galaxy was in a science fiction future, I decided to go the other way and place it in a fantasy past of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what led to the idea of her being an anthropomorphic raccoon, and kind of the idea of placing her in a prehistoric time period.
So why the Bronchiosaurus? What drew you to that type of dinosaur out of everyone in there? And the relationship is rather unique. I really enjoyed diving into the prologue, and we all know Bronchiosauruses are herbivores, but seeing Ninu give Bronch a fish, that was pretty comical. So what drew you to the Bronchiosaurus out of all the choices that you had?
It's like the part of that is I just like the idea of a creature as small as a raccoon somehow befriending a creature that large. It's that's just the basic of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of what would allow me to have kind of a strange dynamic there, but also if a raccoon is going to travel a prehistoric time period, who would she want to do it with the most?
Mm-hmm.
I would say a Bronchiosaurus, just because. And I'm not a dinosaur expert, but they seem like the hardest kind of dinosaur to topple over, because they're big, they're heavy, probably have the highest success rate of fighting off predators.
Speaking of fighting off predators, though, we do see a little bit of action as well between two of them. They ended up getting ambushed along the way, and we get to see not only Ninu but the Bronchiosaurus get into a pretty big, like, just huge fight. And the way they fared against them, it was really awesome. I love seeing the ingenuity of both of them using what they're capable of to take these creatures on.
Yep. For one thing, with her being as strong as she is, she can't exactly punch these dinosaurs or kick them into next week.
Mm-hmm.
She's got to use her speed, her agility, and since she once belonged to a tribe of raccoons that were mostly fishermen, but also did some hunting. She learned herself how to make weapons like her trademark spear that she wields, and it's like if she can't, and she's become quite proficient with that spear.
So what went into your inspiration for designing this fight sequence? Were there any sort of like animations or movies that you watched, or was everything kind of just built the way you perceived it within your head?
It's primarily in my head, but as far as references go, if anybody who's used How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way as their primary teaching tool for learning how to draw, might recognize that John Buscema is at least an inspiration on the artwork itself, at least in terms of how the anatomy and background detail is structured. Although my style is far more cartoonish than his is, but yeah, while I was making this, I was thumbing through the pages of the Savage Sword of Conan, among other things. But other than that, I've been trying. A lot of the ideas just come from my own head, and what I'm primarily concerned with is trying to, at least attempting to make a page flow properly.
So what goes into that, making the page flow and just come together, and just everything in between? You are an artist as well as the writer for this project.
Yes.
So it's all just you. So what goes into that, and how can it be difficult, like translating your idea to paper or digitally?
Well, I do draw it digitally, but I try to keep my the page on my tablet set up to do an actual 17 by 11 comic page. You know, the kind you'd usually use in real life. But as far as constructing the whole thing, that really starts with the beginning of the writing process, which when I'm doing a long form story like this one, I plan out I at least do a one sentence. I start out my writing by doing a one sentence or one or two sentence description of each chapter, and then I go about by writing a summary of each page, and then I move right into layouts after that, the challenge is getting all of what I describe, because I don't write a pure script. I don't write panel 1, page 1, panel 1, and write a big description and dialogue within that. I actually just write use kind of a pseudo Marvel method, if you will, in that I just describe what's going on in the page and try to give myself some leeway for the next page. Like if I end up describing too many things that I can't put on the page, I try to put it on the next. I try my best to put it on the next page, but often how I will go is if I have a big description on one page, I'll try to have as little description as possible on the next page. Generally, in each chapter, I'm trying to keep it between a 22 and 30 page limit.
Yeah, and I think having that type of balance also keeps like the reading flow for the reader at a pretty decent pace. In my experience, reading too much text, page after page, can kind of help burn you out quicker than not having it just back to back to back. So now that we kind of have the previous for everything set for issue or the prologue, let's talk about chapter 1 and the Subscribe Star. What drove you to choose Subscribe Star as your platform? And would you say that this has been more of a successful move than doing the campaign on the traditional Kickstarter or Indiegogo?
Well, I wouldn't say it's been quite successful yet. As of right now, I only have 6 subscribers, and I've priced the subscription cost at only $3 a month, assuming the readers don't want to cancel after just the first month.
Mm-hmm.
But the primary reason that I'm using Subscribestar right now is I am so busy in my personal life that I really don't have time to do a traditional crowdfunding campaign, to use Indiegogo or Kickstarter. So I decided to begin by kind of funding the comic as I'm working on it. It's like via Subscribestar or Patreon. And I chose Subscribestar because I just have a couple of issues with Patreon, mostly with how they operate, and just and a few things in their terms of service that I'm not comfortable with. But the drawback is I think Subscribestar takes just a little bigger cut than Patreon does. But I have seen what little return I have seen. It's been satisfying to see.
So, would you say, with how things are going, how far are you within the comic itself, doing it this method? You release a page a week, basically, for $3 a month, correct?
Yes, and for people who don't want to, it's like I'm basically up to 20 pages right now, and most people would probably go, oh, I can pick up a physical copy of a comic book at the comic book store for that. But eventually I'm gonna put at least 5 chapters out on the Subscribestar, as well as a few other projects I'm currently writing. And so eventually any potential reader is going to get their money's worth, assuming they like what they read.
So, are you going to continue using Subscribestar, you would say, as opposed? It does sound like it's a little bit more convenient to knock out a page a week, as instead of having to deal with a deadline eventually when the campaign ends. Would you say this is worth it long term in the reader, though? You said you're going to have 4 more chapters dropping sometime in the near future.
Yes. I plan on I would plan on using a regular crowdfunding campaign eventually. I'm just gonna basically see how business goes for the time being, but the eventual plan is to go back and color the whole thing, whether that's done by me or if I make enough money to hire a colorist to do it for me. But eventually I do plan on printing floppies, and once I get enough chapters done to justify a graphic novel, that's how I also intend to print it as well. And at that point, it might actually, when you have a whole graphic novel, at that point crowdfunding might be a more suitable option, since you'll have the whole thing already done. Right. And that's another reason I used Subscribestar, is because going back to how busy my schedule is, it's like some people say that having their books in a timely manner when it comes to the crowdfunding is not all important to them, but I just worried about taking way too long and having a bunch of people asking for refunds because whether circumstances are in my hands or not, I work slowly. So I just decided to do it in a way where I can manage it for the time being, and if time ever frees up for me to work faster, then I can probably work on more projects post more projects on Subscribestar, probably simultaneously.
Yeah, and Honestly, how you do it is what works best for you. For me, I would feel like feeling forced to put out a product is going to dampen that creative flow, the creative juice. And eventually, it starts becoming more forced and less passion. And, in the long term,
Right.
that's not going to give a product that it's going to be harder to be satisfied with that.
Right.
So what do you want to talk about with chapter 1? What are you allowed to? Because I know a lot of this is behind the paywall. So
Yes.
what are you
Yes,
comfortable
well,
talking? Oh, go ahead.
Well, if you're showing my screen, I can scroll up here and show off a few pages at the very least.
Yeah, we do have that little window that I sent you, so it is showing it right now for you.
Yeah, well, I do not think I'm giving too much away. Which the very last page here of the prologue, we see Brock here, the Bronchiosaurus, kind of mentioned in his thoughts that Ninu is having nightmares of the night they first met, and I am kind of spoiling it here, but the first chapter is about how they met, and how Ninu was a much younger raccoon growing up in a tribe, a tribe full of raccoons that inhabited a forest, as she had a fairly stable living environment for a while, and then all of a sudden some evil forces came in and invaded her village. She was the only one to escape. The rest were either killed or enslaved, and basically the first chapter just sets up how she escaped, how she managed to get to start traveling with a Bronchiosaurus, but the preceding chapters after that is going to be a bunch of adventures and misadventures in terms of figuring out how they navigate a world that's literally trying to eat them both alive.
So what would you say the world building is going to be like for the next couple of chapters? Where do you envision this project going in terms of just the environment and the world surrounding Ninu and Bronch?
Well, not giving away too much. Like I said, they're trying to figure out how to navigate this world. So they're just a couple of vagabonds that really don't have any roots to call home, and it's like, so they meet constantly with hostility, be it with dinosaurs or other tribes that raccoons may not exactly be friendly with. So there's just danger around every corner, and without giving too much away, I also have written a B plot that might keep some people interested, that causes basically the forces that orphaned Ninu as a young child have come back into her life later on.
Okay. So what is gonna be what would be some of the biggest selling points that you want to express to anyone listening right now on why they should subscribe to your campaign on Subscribestar? Like, what would you say would be the push that's going to push them over the edge into why they should?
Well, for one thing, it's got dinosaurs. Everybody likes dinosaurs, but also it's going to have lots of action in it. If you love action comics, other kinds of comics I was reading other than Conan the Barbarian, as I've looked up a bunch of I think it was called Jungle Comics from the I think those comics were from the 30s and 40s, probably the 50s. But I was basically finding some of those online and gaining inspiration from those. if you like those old comics, you might like this one as well. But I would like to think, and I'll let the readers be the judge of this, that I've come up with that the people who have read my preliminary scripts so far has say that I do have the groundwork for some solid character development. I think in addition to the action, a lot of the readers will fall in love with these characters that I've come up with, and I think they will want to follow their story from beginning to end, and probably a little beyond this chapter in their lives, because even after this particular story arc is finished, I do have other ideas beyond this particular story, depending on how successful this comic is.
So, did you also say that you had other projects in the works as well, or were those all tied to this project as well?
Yeah, no, those are separate projects, but I do have one that I think I can announce right now, although I don't have any artwork for it just yet. I do have one idea that I do have the first at least the first 3 chapters written out for is an idea called Drow Cowboy. This is a Western fantasy about a Drow elf, or dark elf as some people might prefer to call them. That is adopted by humans, and it's got gunslinging and sorcery magic.
Okay.
Sorcery and magic.
All right. Yeah.
So that's one thing to look forward to from me.
So excuse me for interrupting. Where'd you get your inspiration for that? That kind of gives me Dark Tower vibes from Stephen King. How he was a gunslinger as well. With there's a lot of like dark magic going on in that.
It's like a bunch of it just came from what I was watching at the time. I haven't played D&D in years, but I have played some. I was also watching a little bit of anime like Record of Lodoss War and Slayers, and just kind of looking into those worlds a little bit. But I was also watching binging a bunch of spaghetti westerns, the Dollar trilogy with Clint Eastwood, and those movies like that, and some old Charles Bronson films when he did westerns, and since those were the 2 primary things I was watching, and also playing a little bit of D&D, it kind of led me to think about Shadowrun, which is kind of a science fiction fantasy, using a bunch of elements of fantasy and magic, also the futuristic science of cyberpunk. I was just wondering, what if we brought all those fantasy fairy tale elements over into a Western setting?
So why a dark elf out of any race and type of creature that you could have chose? Why the dark elves? What drew you to that type of species? Excuse me.
Yeah, well, Dungeons and Dragons fans can forgive me for not knowing much about the lore there. I kind of took a few liberties myself, and I'm not an expert on it. But basically, from what I've read, is that dark elves are usually a contemptible bunch. They usually fall on the side of evil. So in a Western setting, you'd probably have marauders that are dark elves, or they would be constantly invading farm settlements. Sometimes robbing trains. Who knows? So they would probably be the least desirable people in terms of who you'd want to associate with. But it's like, but the idea that a human couple finds a child out in the middle of a desert, and they take pity on him just because he's a child. It's like he hasn't done anything wrong yet, so they're like, since this little guy's got no parents of his own, well, we might as well take him in.
So I notice it feels like a correlation between the two comics, though, with both of the main protagonists either having parents missing or parents that are dead. What draws you to that type of hardship for these characters?
Nothing too deep. I'd say it's the same kind of thing that Walt Disney had for killing off parents in his movies. So it's like, it's just I tend not to dwell on it, other than it's something that they had to deal with in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just the kind of circa. But it's it's like in the case of Ninu, it was just she's all alone in this world, but she's only got her Bronchiosaurus to keep her company.
Yeah.
In the case of Drow Cowboy, it's he looks like the kind of person that would typically be hostile toward humans, light elves, or whoever else would cross his path. So he's probably has had to deal with that in some way.
So,
but
how far away do you think we are until we see that project? Do you think it's some time out? Are you trying to finish Ninu and the Dinosaurs first? What's kind of like your roadmap with that?
My roadmap is I'm gonna at least finish 5 chapters of Ninu. Once I am done with 5 chapters, I'm gonna shift my focus onto one of my other projects. Drow Cowboy might come next, but I also have a couple of I also have at least one other that I'm also putting some light focus on. So whichever one I feel is more developed and ready,
mm-hmm.
I'll probably start on next.
So we also acknowledge that you're from Stonemason Comics. Let's go ahead and talk about that as well. What inspired you to create that as opposed to work under someone else?
Well, it's like, again, I don't have, because of my personal life, my working life, I don't really have time to go do a traditional crowdfunding campaign. So I felt like if I was going to do any kind of comics, I might as well, on my own in any capacity, I might as well come up with a label for at least a studio, mm-hmm. that I work under, and Stonemason Comics sounded like a cool name, first of all.
Yeah.
How I came up with it was I'm actually a Christian, so I will listen to a lot of theological philosophy videos, and I was listening to a Messianic rabbi, or Jew for Jesus for people who are not familiar with that kind of lingo. Mm-hmm. I was listening to him talk about the kind of work Jesus did before his ministry, and he mentioned that it's often said, it's a commonly repeated myth that Jesus was a carpenter. But he argued that he was actually a stonemason, and he went through the philosophical reasons as to why that was important, and he kind of explained that a stonemason only has one chance to get things right. If he screws up, it's pretty much like if he's sculpting a statue, or if he's building a house and he cuts the stone in the wrong way, that's the end of that piece.
Yeah.
You can't use it anymore. And I kind of thought that's at least that's, if nothing else, that's at least reflective of the way that I at least write comics.
So
it's
would you say being religious has any of that bled into your comic? Maybe some of the ideas of some of the way things are handled, or just maybe viewpoints of things. Like, would you say any of that bleeds into any of your story at all?
Well, the current comics I'm working on aren't religious per se. I'd say that that you might see some the occasional philosophical banter between characters be reflective of at least my Christian beliefs in some way, while not directly mentioning God or anything spiritual. It's like I try to keep my personal beliefs out of my comics as much as possible, but at the end of the day, every artist at some point expresses what's in his mind, and so if I have any sort of philosophical banter between my characters, they might pick up on how I believe society ought to function, how people ought to treat each other, stuff like that, and not always in how the characters dialogue, but also how they grow. One thing I can promise is that my characters don't just have flaws they're not always the best fighter, not always just that kind of flaw, but also have a legitimate character flaws in that they don't always treat others the right way. They sometimes they lose their temper, sometimes they overreact, basically I do kind, if nothing else, I do have written I have notes written in the ways that I want them to grow, and I've also got the roadmap written out for how they will grow.
And I think doing that type of thing adds a lot of personality to your characters, and it's easier for the audience to relate to them, seeing them overcome their trials and tribulations within themselves. So I could really respect a lot of that. So Mark, I think we definitely knocked out a lot of your Subscribe Star campaign, Ninu's story, and Dinosaurs. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about your campaign, or anything else you wanted to bring up for the listeners or the viewers out there?
Well, I really don't, other than posting pages, I really don't have too much going on right now. But it's like, but a couple things that I can mention is that in the near future I will be designing merchandise for Ninu, stuff images to possibly put on T-shirts or posters that people can buy online, and who knows, maybe even a coffee mug if I can figure that one out.
That would be pretty cool.
But another thing I'm planning on doing is I'm planning on posting as you can see right now on my Subscribe Star, it's pretty much Subscribe Star has it so that you got to go all the way to the bottom to see the first page. I recognize that as I add more pages to the Subscribe Star, this is not going to be the ideal way to read the comic.
Yeah.
So much like the prologue here, which is on tapas.io. I think I said that wrong. Sorry, but tapas.io. You can search under Ninu of the Dinosaurs, or go to my Twitter at cartoonistmark. I think I have the link to this very prologue here. But eventually what I'm going to do in a few weeks is I'm going to post each page in order like this on Subscribestar, all in one post, so that people can scroll down for a much easier reading experience.
Yeah. And I think that would be really beneficial, long term speaking. The Subscribestar definitely seems like something beneficial for how you need to get this out there to your viewers and your audience, and I'm hoping we can definitely shine some spotlight for you. Now, with that being said, we've come to my favorite part of the episode. I always love asking indie comic creators this question in particular, and that is, if you had to give advice to anyone trying to break into the industry and just finish their book for the first time or their first issue chapter, what advice would you give them to kind of help them get through it?
I'd give them two pieces of advice primarily, and that is whatever skill level you're at, whether you're terrible or great, just do it. Don't start where you're at, and kind of learn along the way and try to get better. Because what I found is what matters is even when you're terrible, and I found this one. And I found this one out too late because I was a lazy artist back then, and I didn't see the importance in marketing. So when I started doing this comic, I had basically no following whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But I look around a lot of places, DeviantArt, Twitter. There are a lot of artists out there that are not that good, but they got following because whether they're good or not is irrelevant. They've found people that do like their artwork, so they should. So wherever you're at, again, whether you're terrible or you're great, just do it. Get that idea out there, but also at the same time, do not be afraid of constructive criticism. Now, it's like you can get on the internet. You can get a lot of unwarranted criticism that you didn't ask for. But I would say try your best to ask for criticism.
Yeah,
and I know that can.
I was gonna say, I would say that part essentially is make it break it for a lot of people, because sometimes asking questions and getting responses that you're not prepared to hear can be really devastating and demotivating. But sometimes as long as you take it constructive and in a manner of good construction, it could really help you.
Right, and I will say this. One big wake up call for me was when I was in college. I did take a bunch of art classes, and I had a couple of really good art teachers that would not be yes men.
Yeah,
they would not. They would not be afraid to tell you that they didn't like what they were doing, and this was, I was lucky. I was actually lucky enough to get people who didn't care about which style you used, be it a cartoonish style or a realistic style, but they both somehow knew how to critique all that kind of stuff. But I would say even better than that, there was a time where I really wanted to get into the industry by traditional means. So I was one of those people who was making out a new portfolio to take to a comic book convention every month, and I would try to track down the conventions where editors at Marvel and DC were showing up, and some of the best things that have ever happened to me was getting rejected by those guys, because when I didn't always get to talk to them, but of course when I'd get my portfolio back, I would always ask for one sentence. I know you didn't want to talk to me, but if you had to tell me what I need to work on in one sentence, what is it? And I had a couple of people who were nice enough to tell me that. I also, not just the editors, but also the comic book pros that were shilling their own comics there. and I would ask them what I could start doing differently and what I'm doing right. And for me, that was the best art school that I've ever gone to.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And it takes a lot to ask that question, because what again, like hearing stuff that you don't want to hear, but that's essential to your growth. As long as you're willing to work on it, it definitely has to, be rough at first to get used to it.
yeah, and I can still see where I struggle in some places. In fact, the more trained eye might be able to see where I screw up here and there. But like I said, wherever you're at, just get your name out there. Hopefully your artwork resonates with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I think this is a perfect segue for us to lead off. I am Cody, your Cape Crusader, and we've been keeping it geekly with Mark Charles Burgat of Stonemason Comics, and this is Ninu of the Dinosaurs, Chapter 1. We're going to be putting the subscribe star link in the YouTube video when I get it edited. I might be able to get it out tonight, but more than likely it'll be tomorrow afternoon, so stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, if you're not following Mark, those links will be in the YouTube as well. Mark, I really appreciate you coming on today's stream. This was the first live stream, and I'm excited for this to be the first of many. Once again, thank you a lot, Mark. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, guys, as always, keep it geekly.